Hello and welcome back to CS++. This is our second unit in our Intro to Programming using JavaScript. Today we're going to look at how to use methods and what those methods can return and what parameters we can put into those methods. So if we look through the README, you'll see the table of contents. We're going to go through what exactly a method is. We're going to look at a handful of methods from the string class that already exists in the language. We'll also look at some from the math class. And then we'll do a little bit of practice, and we'll do the assignment where we are going to warm up by casing a title correctly. We're going to get some initials from a couple of words, as you can see here, like JD or M.J.W from these couple names. We'll also find the hypotenuse of a triangle, and we'll make sure that we are using these different methods. So there might be some you've used in the past, but we're going to make sure that we use these exact ones to make sure all of our tests passed. And then you can see some tips and frequently asked questions at the bottom if you are stuck. So the first thing is, what is a method? You can see that this is just a function that belongs to a class. So in this case, we're going to look at ones that belong to a string, or anything that's in quotes we consider a string literal. So that could be literally hello in quotes, or it can be hello in quotes saved into a variable. And methods are going to look the same when you use them. They're going to be something, which we call an object, and then a period, which we call a dot operator, and then the name of the method. And then they're always going to have parentheses at the end. Sometimes those are going to be empty, and sometimes we're going to actually have to put values in there. And sometimes they send you information back. So in this case, the word hello, toUpperCase, toUpperCase is going to return hello in all caps. So if you want, you can save that into another variable or into the same variable, or you could use it into an alert or something that expects text. So it's up to you what you do with it, or you can just let it float away into nowhere. So a couple of the string methods we're going to look at are going to be charAt, which is going to give you the position inside the parameters, and it will tell you what the character is at that position. One thing to know about JavaScript is that it is a zero index language. So that means the very first character is going to be character 0. So if you said charAt 0 for hello, it will give you the capital H. The next one is going to be toUpperCase and toLowerCase. You will see that we'll just take all of the characters that are letters and make them all capital letters, or for toLowerCase, all lowercase letters. There's also one called indexOf. IndexOf will tell you where the first instance of the string you put in here exists. So here, if you put in a space to hello world, you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth character from a 0-based index is going to be 5. So this can be a string or a single character, and it will tell you where it is. If it's not there, then it will return -1. If you want to look deeper into the string, you can also put a start position in here. So if you put a second parameter inside the parentheses separated by a comma, you can say start at 2. So where's the first space after the second character? So you can see the second character is the B, so the first space is in the next one, which is character 3. Slice is very similar to something called substring, but we're going to use slice for this one. And this is going to say, give me from the position you put in until the end of the string. So if you put slice 1, this is going to go from the first index, which is the second character E, and then just go all the way to the end of the string. Or you could say 2 parameters, like 1, 3, and this would be the start, and this would be the first thing not included. Right? So this is where you want to end, but that's one very important to know that this one's not included in the result. So you can always tell what the result's length will be by subtracting these 2. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and we have 2 letters here. And then this is not a method, but this is a property about a string. So .length will tell you how many characters are in there. So hello has 5 characters. So that means the first one is 0, and the last one is 4, the index of it. And then we'll also look at math methods when we get in here. Math are a little different because instead of saying the name of the string that you're using, you always use the word capital Math. So these are considered static methods. So you say the name of the class, and then the dot operator, and then the name of the method. So here we have SQRT for square root. You can see some examples over here. Pow, which we saw we could always use asterisk asterisk, but this raises it to a power. So base and exponent are the two parameters. We can round, and this will round like we know how to round. So 0.5 or higher will go up, and then below that will round down. Or we could use these special ones called floor and ceiling, which will always go up or always go down. So the floor of 3.9 is 3. It always rounds down to the closest integer, and ceiling always rounds up. So 3.1 would round up to 4. Absolute value is just going to give you the positive result of whatever you put in. So -5 would become 5. And like we saw in the last unit, the last lesson, Math.pow is a constant that exists inside the math class, which will give you a more accurate representation of pi. And like I mentioned earlier, you could use asterisk asterisk if you wanted to instead of pow. And then, like I mentioned earlier, right, the parameters here are 0, 25, and L. These are the things that you put into the parentheses. There could be multiple ones, and those would be separated by a comma. And then you also, some of these have returns, right? So this one, hello world, indexOf, this returns a 5, so you can store that in or use that in other places. So let's jump into our assignment. The first thing you want to do is you want to open up your index.html. And you will see some code already in here like before. And there are some pre-existing on-click function calls here. So if you want to run these, you should open these in a new browser window. So click the little magnifying glass split screen, open it in the browser, and when it loads, you will see the titleCase, getInitials, and the hypotenuse. And you can keep this open if you want, but you can also close it. If you open it back up, then you will see the preview here. But JavaScript does not work. Pop-ups and alerts do not work inside of code spaces. So we're going to close that. And then again, you don't have to mess with anything else in the index.html. So you can open up script.js, and you can see exactly what we're going to do step by step. So the first one is titleCase. So we have a couple different steps here. The first one is we're going to enter a word, right? And we want to, again, match the exact string that you see here. Sometimes if you do get stuck and you can't type, all you have to do is refresh your page, and it should work fine. Just reload the code space. So now I can type. So for this one, I'm going to do let word equals a prompt that says enter a word. And again, there's no punctuation at the end there, so make sure it matches exactly. The next step is going to be go and grab the first letter of that word and make it capitalized. So we can chain these two methods together. So let's create a new variable to hold the first letter. We can call this first. So to get it, we can go grab the word and then grab the first character. So you can use charAt position 0. So that would be the very first letter. But we want to make that capitalized. So since charAt returns a string, we can add another string method to the end of this, which is toUpperCase. And make sure you put those empty parentheses on the end of all methods that don't have any parameters too, right? We still need those. The next one is to get the rest of the word. So we can do maybe let rest equal. This time it's word dot. And now we want to go from the second letter all the way to the end. So we could use our slice method. And then if we say 1, it will start at 1 and then just keep going to the end. And we want to make those all to lowercase with those empty parentheses at the end. And step 4 is going to be to concatenate these two together. So we can do this either in 2 steps or we could do it in 1 step, right? So you can just concatenate them together inside the alert. So alert first plus rest. And we want to make sure that that works. So we can go over here, refresh our page, click titleCase, still refreshing. If you did have to refresh your code space, you might have to go back to your index.html and then open this up in a new port. And now when I click titleCase, I can type in something like hello, cased incorrectly, and now it's going to return hello, cased with a capital letter. And the rest is all lowercase. So that looks good. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is going to say getInitials. So this is going to be very similar. It's a little trickier because now we just want to replace anything that is the rest of the word basically with a period. So there's no spaces in here. So the first thing we want to do is ask them for their name. So let's do let name equals prompt. Enter your full name. And again, no punctuation after that, so make sure it matches the string. Then we can go grab the initials. So for this one, we can do, let's say, let init equals name dot character at position 0. And then we want to make sure all the initials are capitalized still. So we want to do toUpperCase. But we also want a period after each letter. So what we can do is concatenate a period after the first initial. And for the next one, we want to find the first space. So we can use a method called indexOf, as we can see right here with a space in there, to tell me where the next one is. So we can say let's call it first space equals name dot indexOf, and then a space in between quotes. So that will tell me exactly where that space is. So the next part is a little tricky because we haven't actually learned if statements yet, but I'll show you how to do it now, and we'll get into it deeper in the next lesson. But for this one, the letter after the first space is space plus 1. So what we can do is we can check to see if that name exists. So we only want to do this if first space does exist, right? If they only put one word in there, we don't want to do it. And same thing if they have a last name. So this is called an if statement, and like I mentioned, we'll dive into this a little bit deeper in the next unit. But if that first space is not equal, or if you use equals equals, this means that it will match the type as well. So -1, the string would not be not equal. So we want to do equals equals after that. So if it is, I guess I did this a little out of order. This should be going down here, but I'll move it. So if there is no number, or if there is a number there, and we want to open up a set of braces here, then we want to add the initial of the next one to the end of the first one. So what we can do is we can take that init, or initials, and we can set it equal to init plus name dot charAt, and this is going to be the space after that first space. So first space plus 1. And then we also want to make that toUpperCase. And we also want to concatenate a period on the end of that one. And still inside this, we're going to do step 6, but we still want to be inside of the same if statement, so I'm going to do it up here, because we shouldn't do the third space if there was no second space. So now I can create the same thing for a second space. So second space, we'll call it equals name dot indexOf. And for this one, we are going to be looking for a space, but if you remember, we can use a second parameter for indexOf and find out where we want to start. Because if we start at the beginning again, we're going to get the same space as the first space. So we want to start at the letter we just did, which is first space plus 1. And likewise, we can just say if there is a second space. So if second space is not equal to -1, open a set of braces, and then we're going to do something very similar to what we did on line 59. So init, and one shorthand way to write init equals init plus something is the plus equals symbol. So that does the exact same thing as saying init equals init plus something. It's just a little easier way to write it. So we're going to concatenate name dot charAt at this time second space plus 1 dot toUpperCase, and then put that period on the end. So we basically already did all 5, 6, and 7. So now we just want to alert those initials. And we can try to see if that works. So we can jump back over here, refresh it, get initials, Bob Smith, BS. And then we can try it again, get initials, Joe, just J dot, and then we'll try one more with 3 names, Mary Lou Smith. And we're getting an error here. So here you have a function called toUpperCase. So what we can do is we can go back to our code and see what we did wrong there. So I mentioned that when you do toUpperCase and things like that, they need to have parentheses at the end. If not, it tries to go put just the code that makes that work in there. So if we go and add parentheses at the end of toUpperCase on line 62, and now we go back and refresh this and try again. Now it works perfectly. All right, so for the final one, we're going to find the hypotenuse of a triangle. So for this one, we're just going to practice again, converting the prompt to a number. So here, I'm going to need 2 sides. So we'll call them A and B. So let A equals, and then we're going to want to turn this into a number. So let's go ahead and do it in one step. Parse float prompt. And then again, make sure you match the string above, enter side A. And then same thing for the next one. Let B equals parse float prompt, enter side B. And then again, we don't have to do this part because we already converted them to numbers using parse float. So we can go to step 4. So we can figure out the hypotenuse. We'll say let result equals, and then we will take the square root of this. So if you remember, this is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it's a square root of a squared plus b squared. So you can use Math.sqrt to find a square root. And then for Math.pow, you can just use a times a instead of Math.pow of a comma 2. Or you could have done a asterisk asterisk 2, which raises it to the second power. But we'll just keep this one. And then you just want to make sure you alert the correct thing. So alert. And then it's just hypotenuse and then rounded to 2 decimals. So hypotenuse is followed by a colon and a space, and then the result dot toFixed of 2. And you can test that out by refreshing over here, clicking hypotenuse, 3, 4, hypotenuse is 5.0. So again, when you're done, you can click on the version control here, give it a message, we'll call it done, and then you can click commit and push. Make sure that you are giving it a message, otherwise it's going to sit here and wait for you to enter a message. And then once that pushes back to github.com, you can go back to your GitHub repo. You can refresh it. You will see a gold dot pending. So you can click on that and then click on details. It can take up to a minute. So these are all the tests running. You probably don't need that much detail unless you're getting an error. So you can always click on the summary here. And then this will show you that it's working. And when it's complete, you should get a summary down at the bottom. If you spelled something wrong, or your math is off, or you didn't round a number, you might find that you didn't pass all your tests. So in a couple seconds, this will show you exactly how we did, and we passed everything. So you'll see that you will get a red X if you did not pass all of them. So that is an intro to methods, and we use the string methods, and we also use the math methods, which again can be seen in your README. And then for the next one, we will move on and we will start looking at selection and logic, so more about those if statements that we saw a second ago. I'll see you next time.